Everyone, welcome to Wigan Fan TV. I am back. Joining me this evening is David Bailey. David, firstly, I want to thank you and Mark for taking care of the show over the past couple of weeks whilst I've not been here, whilst I've been on baby duty. So thank you very much. I enjoyed watching in the backgrounds and controlling things. It's a role that I might consider in the future and sort of let the chaos continue on screen. Stu is going to be joining us, I think, at some point. But Stu, you can't. He always arrives sort of fashionably late to make an entrance. So tonight it's all about looking back at a Wigan win, which feels nice and unique. And I only come on the show when Wigan have won is probably what people might be thinking. Looking ahead to the Catalans game and obviously things that have happened during the week, including obviously Craig Mullen and what followed on Sunday evening. So, David, first of all, your thoughts on a Wigan victory as Mr. Stuart Minnis pops up on my screen, so I'm going to bring him in just a second. But David, talk us through your thoughts of Wigan finally getting a win under the belt.
Yeah, round two seemed a long time ago, didn't it, when we beat Leeds? So it was fantastic to get the win. Wasn't the best game, but we just needed to. The 2 points were the most important thing, I think, with everything that's been flying around off the field. Like I said, lots going on before it, and then some more information this week. But the pleasing thing for me about the Salford win was the effort, and it was one of those games that hung in the balance for quite a lot. It was like a bit of an arm wrestle, if you want to put it that way. And to come out on top of that against a very capable Salford side, they might not be there or thereabouts for trophies that come the end of the season, but they're no longer the yo-yo team that are sort of battling with relegation these days. Ian Watson seems to have got them consistent and got the game, the players playing well. So it was a pleasing result, and for me, it was the guts and the effort and the determination to get those 2 points that sort of was the most pleasing aspect of it.
A team that's just been strengthened today as well with Christian Inu confirming that he's finally signed for Salford. Stu, good evening. Are you all right?
Yeah, spot on yourselves.
Yeah, very good. We're just sort of building you up about how you're fashionably late. Is that the way that you sort of approach things? Are you just like when you go to like weddings and stuff? Are you the person that sort of walks in after the bride?
No, I've been out for a meal, so we're a bit late. So apologies.
Stu, one thing I was just saying to David off air is, of all the people that were so angry during the past 5-6 weeks, however many defeats we've had in a row, you were the pinnacle. You were absolutely furious, weren't you, about the performances, about pretty much everything. How are you feeling now after we've finally got a win? Do you feel like we've turned the corner, or are you still a little bit apprehensive?
No, to be honest with you, for what I've seen in the highlights of the game of Sunday, obviously with our old wingers back in the fray, it looks, you know what I mean? I know it's already the game back since injury, but no, happy. Tell us, let's just say, which Wigan fan wouldn't be happy after a win? Do you know what I mean? So, but as you say, happy, yeah. So
you mentioned the wing. Obviously, that made it. I think just the confidence of looking at that team list when it came out, that back line all of a sudden, just it almost. I think it gave confidence to fans, and it must have given them confidence to the rest of the team as well. Just seeing Manfredi and Burgess back on. I mean, Burgess came up with a few mistakes. I think they scored a lot of the tries down there. Manfredi got the ball stolen off him, but from an attacking point of view, your mum's killing you here, Stu. Apparently, you were late for your own wedding.
Don't, man. Just no notice of her. Shaun, ban her off the show, man. Just do it. Sign die, Shaun. Just sign die. Get rid of her. I don't care if it's Mother's Day on Sunday. Just whatever, just do it.
David, your thoughts on Gary's? I'm just trying to find Gary's comment from a few minutes ago here. He says the next 3 games we need to put a marker down. I think if I remember rightly, we've got Catalans, Castleford, Wakefield, and then we go into the Easter weekend against Saints and Salford. This is a massive test now for Wigan over the next few games. We'll obviously focus on the Catalans game in just a moment, but is what the danger is a defeat on Sunday and then two difficult games against Castleford and Wakefield. Do you feel confident that we're now looking like Lamb may have an idea of what his side is? That's always been my concern, is he doesn't know his best team. Do you think we're getting closer to that?
I think we're getting close to it. And again, like I think we've said it, pretty much throughout the earlier parts of the season as well, with regards to the interchanges and where did we go with the key positions, with the halfbacks, the hooker, Escaré, Samet, who do we pick? And none of them have really performed up until this weekend. It's interesting you mentioned about the confidence in the back line as well. I think when I was on with Mark last week, we mentioned and highlighted that Burgess coming back in would probably be a good thing for Williams. The link in almost telepathically sometimes, and I think George gave us his best game. You alluded to it off air. George gave us his best game this season against Salford, and the crucial thing now is backing that up, and I think it's everybody backing it up. Catalans at home, really. Catalans have historically not been the best travellers, but I think they're a bit of a different animal. They've got a lot more experience now. They've got a very familiar looking spine, with the likes of Tompkins and Smith, and it's one of those games we should be winning the game regardless of the form. We should be beating Catalans at home regardless of how well they're playing. So, and with Cass and Wakefield coming up, like I said, they're not going to be pushovers. So we need to make sure we don't go back to square one, because a defeat on Sunday in bubble almost, and we're back to scratching our heads, wondering what's happening with Edwards, wondering what's happening with Williams, and everything else sort of comes back, like a big dark cloud, doesn't it?
I want to pick up on a point that Tony's just made in just a second on here, but the Wigan runner, Matthew, is listening to our lovely voices. I don't think my voice has ever been described as lovely before, but he's on day 816, so keep going, Matthew. Tony says, by putting Tony's comment on screen, I pretty much cover the whole of David's face, so I apologise, David, but...
everybody will love that.
Tony says, thought the first minutes and the last 4 minutes, first half, first minute, second half apart, we was pretty much in control. Greenwood, Bullock, Flower and Hamlin were great. Left edge, the best in Super League. Now, talking of that left edge in just a second, Stu, you've been a massive fan and a big sort of campaigner almost of Mr. Samet. It looks like he made a great break for, I think it was George Williams' first try, that sort of dummy. Are you happy that we look to have now almost a settled halfback partnership with Luluai at number 9? Powell's still out for a couple of weeks. Are you happy to see Samet in there and given an opportunity? I
am, definitely. But on a plus note, I've noticed that when a certain Mr. Shorrocks has been on the pitch and Lockers has been off and Luluai's been off, he's been performing. He's been doing really good. You know what I mean? I've really noticed that. And I think that in itself is a plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's somebody that I've completely just missed off any item of talking about tonight. But Shorrocks has had an impact in these last 2 games, hasn't he? And he's for somebody that is a halfback that's playing at hooker. We saw George Williams do that, didn't we, a few years ago? We've obviously seen Sam Powell do that for one reason or one success or lack of success, depending on where you sit on the Sam Powell. But are you happy with that combination of Samet, Williams, Luluai at 9, and then Shorrocks? Are you concerned, Stu, about Sean O'Loughlin's form? Is it a case of he's proven himself over however many years, or is it the unthinkable? Is Sean O'Loughlin's place in the side questionable at this moment in time, Stu?
Me personally, I think it's a bit too far. I know a lot of fans are going to start giving, come up here. He should have called it last year. That was his swan song, the grand final. You know what I mean? We can all be hypocritical. We can all say these things, but you just have to look at where he is this year. And I just think, get him on the coaching staff, be ideal forwards coach. Has vast of experience, and I just think, maybe a bridge too far for the man.
I'm going to ask David in just a second about the left edge, Mark's favourite golden edge, as you rightly said last week. Bringing Burgess back into that left-hand side. Just gave a confidence to Gildart, gave a confidence to Williams, that link-up play between the three of them. Greenwood on there, as Josh says, we're going to miss him if I don't know whether they've appealed the ban or whatever, but he is banned at this moment in time for the Catalans game. He looked awesome again on Sunday. He had 4 people wrapped around him at one point, didn't he, for that Williams hat-trick try. Matt puts this comment on, and I don't know if there's any Game of Thrones fans.
Yeah,
they know that Grey Worm is missing a certain vital part of his anatomy, and I'm just wondering how Matt knows that, and how Shorrocks is Grey Worm. I really don't know how or why he knows that. But David, your thoughts on that left edge? The left edge. I think no matter who we have there, I think last year when we spoke about this, it was like Marshall, Farrell, Gildart, Williams, and now it's like, it doesn't matter what personnel seem to be over there. It seems it's our biggest attacking threat, and we were talking about Samet pops over there with Williams at times. Yeah. That seems to be how happy are you to see some combinations back over on that left edge?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, that the key. I mean, obviously Farrell's out at the moment. He was another key component to that. There was a few games last year where I think all of our tries came down that side. Burgess coming back, like I said, gives Williams that little bit of comfort, and Gildart, because they played together for quite some time. And I know you mentioned about Burgess making mistakes, but I think he's always had that in him, and that's one of the things that we've got to take. He's got the pace and the power, and he's a great finisher, but you're always going to get mistakes. I think the season, his breakthrough season before he signed to go to Australia, I think he was Super League's top. I think he was the top for mistakes for that season, and he still got an NRL contract on the back of it. So I think sometimes some bits you've just got to bite the bullet. I think Marshall again. He similar thing. I don't know whether that's a left edge thing, whether the players there make more mistakes on the right hand side, but you've got to be happy to see at least Williams, Gildart, and Burgess together, because they do link up superbly. And I think it was Tony earlier on said that they. When on form, they're the best attacking edge in Super League, and that's including Saints with all their firepower that they seem to have at the moment.
David, saying about Shaun O'Loughlin, I'm sort of saying, is his position perhaps questionable at this moment in time? Lots of comments going through. Peter says Lockers is immense. His presence on the field is unmeasurable. What's your take on Shaun O'Loughlin? Somebody's put on here, he's the best player in the World Club Challenge. Tony says Locker's best player in the World Cup Challenge. Yeah, it's easy to what a difference a few weeks makes, and how sort of how I can forget about certain performances. But that's that's sport, I guess. What's your take on O'Loughlin at this moment?
Do you know? I think I don't want to see Lockers go on too far and sort of tarnish. I don't think anybody would have begrudged him signing off at the grand final last year, but I think the part of him, being Mr. Wigan, that losing Wayne, losing Bateman, losing Tompkins. I think if O'Loughlin had retired at that point, it might have been a bridge too far. I'd be happy to see him adapt his game and play a little bit less minutes and more in the middles again, like he's done in the past. I think we've got a lot of exciting options in the back row. You've got the likes of Hamlin that can come in. You've obviously got Greenwood in there. You've got Isa, when he's fit and raring to go. We've got a lot of ability in the back row, and particularly when Farrell comes back. But his influence has waned over the years, over this season, I should say. And I think that we're not seeing, there was a time where when O'Loughlin played, Wigan would win, and when he'd lose, when he was off the pitch, we'd lose. And yeah, I agree with Stu in terms of his influence on the field is being felt less and less this season, but we've been struggling overall, so it might be unfair to sort of point that towards it. But I think it's about time now he needs to adapt his game a little bit and play a little bit more in the middle, and let the younger, fitter, stronger guys in the back row take over that part.
Do you think we're guilty as a club of not really having a secondary option, a Shaun O'Loughlin type player ready yet? I mean, we lost Bateman, who's doing a fantastic job with number 13 on his pack for Canberra, and I think he was always earmarked, wasn't he, as Shaun O'Loughlin's replacement over time. We've lost that. Gabe Hamlin is a completely different player at 13 to what O'Loughlin is. He's not a ball playing 13. Ben Flower, we've seen there in the past. Again, not the same type of player. Tony Clubb. Ryan Sutton was there for a time last season. Morgan Smithies seems to be the player that the coaching staff are pinning as as the future 13. But I know there was rumours about him potentially coming into the matchday squad over the coming months to give him that experience as a young lad. But I mean, he's still very, very young. Still, if you remember Shaun O'Loughlin back in 2003, 2004, coming through the team, how raw he was, and it's going to take a bit of time to get somebody to that level. And I think we are potentially suffering for not having a ball playing 13 to complement Shaun O'Loughlin, whoever that might be. And unfortunately, I think, like Tony said, it might have been Tony, he's playing long minutes at this moment in time, and something that he didn't do under Shaun Wayne. I mean, I think if you remember back 3-4 seasons ago, the first game of the season, in a torrential, rainy game against Catalans at home, when I think Macaulay scored 2 tries, Shaun O'Loughlin started the season as prop, didn't he? He sort of did what, and that's what Andy Farrell did. And maybe that, like you say, it's about progressing his game now onto a different level. You mentioned Mr. Wigan, and you were talking about Shaun O'Loughlin. Stu, Mr. Wigan, Shaun Edwards, 1 week on, still no progress after the press release that said, I've done many business deals shaking a hand. I think anybody that's done business with Ian Lenigan shaking a hand is currently rescinding that business, because it means absolutely nothing. We got David and Mark's thoughts on Shaun Edwards last week. Your thoughts, Stu? Where do you stand? Is it a case of it's time to just let him go, let the club move on, or are you still hoping against hope that maybe he might be the manager next year?
I would be honest with you. I think he's playing games with them. I think he'll end up with our Ionian compatriots, and I just think don't get me wrong. As a player, I love the kid here. He's great, you know what I mean. But now I just think he's wanting telephone numbers, and I just think, nah. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, though. Don't get me wrong. If he come, obviously everybody's going, oh yeah, Shaun was this, Shaun was that. But we don't want to be able to ransom her. Do you know what I mean? Let's get somebody else in there.
Okay,
you know I mean?
You've said let's get somebody else in. Who do we get in? Do you give Adrian Lamb another 12 months? Do you get Tony Smith? Do you give me a name that you would like to see?
Top of my head, I would be honest with you. Tony Smith.
Tony Smith.
Yeah.
When I went on the Warrington podcast, they started off by saying, how would you feel about Tony Smith as Wigan coach? And this was before the Shaun Edwards thing really blew up. And my reaction was, I would absolutely hate Tony Smith to be in charge of Wigan. I think he's an arrogant man who absolutely shows no emotion. I think he's had success at Leeds and a success in the Challenge Cup at Warrington, but I just don't think he's a Wigan manager. But I think he very well could be a Wigan manager sooner or later. David, your thoughts on...
I think that's
I really like the idea of Paul Deacon. I really, really like the idea of Paul Deacon coming back. Again, it's one of those, it could be another Adrian Lamb, whatever you call Adrian Lamb at this moment in time, a success, failure, dealing with transition, whatever that is. He's not being a head coach, has he? But he's been a successful, an assistant coach at a successful time for Wigan. And I think we, as fans, rightly or wrongly, associate Paul Deacon with an attractive style of rugby when he was with Shaun Wayne, that 2013 season, when we didn't win any. 2012, 2013, we didn't win anything in 2012 other than the League Leaders' Shield, but we played some fantastic rugby, didn't we? And I think perhaps, rightly or wrongly, and I think Deacon was there. It wasn't Harris. I might be wrong.
No, it was Deacon.
Deacon.
I think we as fans associate attacking rugby with Paul Deacon, but I think at the same time, us as fans have associated attacking rugby with Adrian Lamb, so perhaps be careful what you wish for. Shane Flanagan is a suggestion here from Tony Pete, obviously out of can't coach in NRL at the moment. He's banned, isn't he, for whatever he's for his involvements over there. It probably blends in well with the Wigan squad at this moment in time. David, I know you had this discussion, Spencer. You'd rather have Ian Millward than Tony Smith. He's not mentioned Richie Mathers this week yet. David, I know you spoke about this last week with Mark, but any thoughts on Edwards not coming? But who would you like to see? I know you're a massive John Winder fan, so he's going to be John Winder, isn't it?
Well,
that would be the ultimate thing to send the Wigan fans over the edge, wouldn't it? We've got this. Wigan fans have this like almost hatred towards the idea of John Winder being head coach, But like I'm here saying I'd like Paul Deacon, somebody who's not been in the game for 3-4 years, who's only been assistant coach, over John Winder, who's been our assistant coach for how long. But anyway, that's Wigan fans for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Deacon will be an interesting call, and the big scope there with O'Loughlin, I think doing something along that. Lamb might get it right. Lamb could very easily get it right for the rest of the season if he finds that something that works, and if he does, then fair play to him. I think the only other one that I can think of that might be an interesting choice, and he mentioned about coaching in England last week, and that's Trent Barrett.
I'm just putting all these up here.
Yeah, so that was exactly. It was here the other day and online in Australia, and saying that he'd be interested in coaching in England. So that kind of 2 and 2 together and getting 4. But I don't trust Lenigan to do anything right at the moment.
Tony's put on that Wellens is on his way. Luckily, it'll take him a few years at the pace to get here. Trent Barrett. Now, I hadn't seen anything about Trent Barrett. It's obviously something. You've seen it, David? Have you?
Yeah, it was an interview over in Australia. I can't remember what it was on, but it was on one of the. It was a video interview, and they asked him about England, and he was saying that he loved his time over here, and he'd certainly be interested in coaching over here at some point. To add that to his CV.
Matt wants Doc Murray. That would be interesting, wouldn't it, Trent Barrett? But then there is this danger of look at what's happening to David Ferner. Look that in a lesser sense what's happening to there is that danger, isn't there, of damaging whatever legacy, however short or long that legacy might be. Shaun Edwards, unfortunately, I think
really damaged it.
He's really damaged it. Yeah,
Do you know what I wish, Shaun? If our friend, the great. How can I put this politely?
Is even in his chin.
The great gentleman that's our chairman. If there's any respect for us spectators and Mr. Madlinsky, let's get this sorted. Come on, let's get this thing. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, people are going to say, well, I'm not going to bother going down there. I watch them on Sky. At the end of the day, unless you haven't got bums on seats, let's start... let's show some respect for the fans for once, instead of being like Bordy and Doyle, CI5, secret agents. Do you know what I mean? So
it's having a negative effect, isn't it? The fact that we're still talking about it, there's still no transparency. I understand where Ian Lenigan's coming from in as much as he's giving. I think he's desperate for Shaun Edwards to be Wigan coach, isn't he? Otherwise, he would have washed his hands of it and said, "Look, we're moving on." He is desperate for it, and I think the fact that Shaun Edwards said that he wouldn't take the Wigan job for this season because he wanted to show loyalty to Wales. That in the back of my mind is still, I don't know why. Has he shown a disloyalty because of what's going on? Perhaps, it would be interesting to see if he did come to Wigan. And it's probably going to be the most Shaun Edwards thing possible, that after all this, he still comes to Wigan. That's not going to faze him one little bit, is it? He's probably doing this deliberately because he wants to get people's backs up a little bit. That just seems like something that Shaun Edwards might do. Talking of, let's get the negativity out of the way before we move on to the Catalans game. We had this fantastic win on Sunday, which was followed by rumours of 2 players being involved in some kind of driving-related incident, which was then confirmed just to be Craig Mullen, who has been dealt with by the police, but he's been caught drunk driving, and obviously what goes with that will follow, and the authorities will deal with that. But how dangerous is the precedent that we're going to set with Zach Hardacre now for Craig Mullen, Stu? Do you think the fact is we've got Zach Hardacre, so we need to stand by Craig Mullen? We've just lost Steve McCormack as a welfare officer, which perhaps isn't a great timing for that. But Craig Mullen's a player that's played a couple of games for Wigan. Is very much a utility. Whether he breaks through into the first team and be a regular, it's high at this moment in time at his age. You wouldn't think so, but Stu, how would you like to see this progress? Would you like to see Wigan stand by him the way that they have with Hardacre, or is it a case of we need to make an example somewhere along the line?
Well, at the end of the day, they've got to, haven't they? Because they can't just say one rope for one and one rope for another. It's like in a job. There'll be strikes all over the place, wouldn't there? You know what I mean? People will say, well, it's one rope for him. Well, how comes he's got away with that? So, as you say, they have got to be on a level playing field, as you say. You know what I mean? They've got to be fair. You know what I mean?
David, as a club, we've got a bit of a checkered history, haven't we? Is probably more than most clubs, unfortunately. No matter how we like to look at it, we've got Ben Flower, we've got Zach Hardacre, we've got Craig Mullen, we've had Gareth Hawk. You name it, the list goes on and on.
Joel.
Is it a cult? Yeah, is it a culture? Yeah, Joel, Sam, even involved in that. Is it a culture problem at Wigan? How do we stop this?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? I don't know whether you can. I don't know whether you can stop it because, as much as you can educate players, and Stu McCormack's one of the best in the business for that. I mean, he was a teacher at my old school, and he's a genuinely good guy, and his loss will be felt at Wigan. But you can't control individuals and the decisions they make in certain circumstances. I don't think it's a culture thing because. Well, I say you get more, to be more regular, but it has been regular, hasn't it, over the last 12 months? If you think of Hardacre and Joel and Sam, and then Craig Mullen, they can't just sort of shun him. They do have to. From my perspective, I'd be very disappointed if they just cast him adrift.
Yeah.
Particularly with Hardacre, signing Hardacre when he was under a drugs ban, and then standing by him. And I know they came out with the excuses of we'd not had time to rehabilitate him. He should have been rehabilitated a little bit better by his previous clubs, but ultimately when he was arrested for being over the limit, it was a Wigan player. So for me, you can't just cast him adrift just because he's not a star sign, he's not a regular first team, and he's not as seen to be as crucial to the squad. They've got to give him a fair crack of the whip, But as for stopping it, I don't think you can. I don't know whether it's just luck or misfortune or what that's led us to this point. But we seem to when Maguire came in, we'd had a bit of a culture problem before Michael Maguire came in. He seemed to come in, clean it all up, sort everything out, and and a lot of that's led by the senior players. When I was with Dave Banks, who we sponsor. He was saying, the culture is driven by the players, and we've still got a lot of senior pros there. So hopefully they'll be able to try and keep him on the right path as well.
I saw an interesting comment on Twitter. I can't remember who it was. I was just sort of reading through it about sort of taking almost the military approach to this of punishing the team rather than the player as well, up until the point that hopefully you drill home that there's a culture that if one player steps out of line, everybody gets punished, and then you rely on the players to sort it out internally. It's just, Tony makes a really good point here. There's this young person problem. The only reason we have Zach is because Leeds and Castleford got rid. Castleford lost the New Guinea winger Carney and the props. Absolutely. Other clubs have problems. It's not unique to Wigan. It's either a young person problem, it's a rugby league problem, isn't it? And unfortunately, we seem to be a sport that generates at this moment in time more negative headlines than positive headlines. But obviously interesting times. I think there's going to be nobody who's as disappointed as Craig Mullen, and I'm sure I think the club will stand by him as they have done in the past. But it's a case of at what point do you draw a line under this happening, and how do you do it, and where do you do it, and that's again another problem for Chris Radlinski and Ian Lennigan to sort out, isn't it? Rather than us, they've got a lot to sort out at this moment in time. It's certainly not an easy job. I'm betting when Chris Radlinski came back to the club in whenever it was 2010 as a general manager of rugby, and now in 2019 as a director, I don't think he imagined he would be dealing with this sort of thing on a regular basis. But let's move on to the Catalans game. Stu, it's the mums go free on Sunday, as Mark and everybody were pretty good to point out a couple of weeks ago. So that offer is still available. I mean, basically, if you're a female, you can go for free. I don't want to say it's Wigan. They're not going to question your age if you're a mum. So, just
wow.
Anybody that's a female will get in. Don't worry about that. But free, well done to the club for that. Stu, it's the return of basically Wigan's. Well, you can't call them Wigan's B team, really, can you? Because they're all players I think that we would probably like to have in our team. How much have you been impressed by Sam Tompkins at Catalans, and do you think he's shown that he was worth the money that Wigan wouldn't pay for him?
I have been impressed with him with what I've seen lately.
Stu. Look at this.
You want to tell the truth, Sean? You know what I mean?
No, I'm putting your mum's comment on saying that you won't take her to the game.
I beg your pardon.
He says,
Sean,
I'm saying
I'm taking it out for a tea on Saturday, so she didn't start that malarkey. Yeah.
Well, it's not Mother's Day until Sunday. It's free as well.
Sean,
Are you going to the game, Stu?
Maybe.
And you're not taking your mum and it's free?
I will be taking her, but that was going to be a surprise. But you've just...
I just ruined the surprise.
Go on, about Sam.
Right, basically, there was an old Bobby Fulton used to say, the spine of any team, any good team, is a 1, a 7, and a 9. Well, just look at Catalan. You know, you've got Sam 1, Matty Smith 7, and Macaulay 9. And I can remember that grand final when they beat Wolves. Was it 2013 when we won the double?
Yeah.
And that was everything. I know Blake Green was in there pulling the strings and all, but they were all over it. You know, Sam was there, and then you had Mickey Mack doing his bit in that. And to me, you've got a good 1, a good 7, and a good 9 at your spine. And let's hope it doesn't come back and bite us on the backside on Sunday. I hope not, but there you go.
The Catalans so far, David, they've been obviously a very good team at home, as you would expect, apart from the Salford game that you're beaten at Wakefield, weren't they, if I remember rightly, earlier in the year, which, you know, many teams are. But they seem to be falling into the old Catalans issue of consistency. I mean, do you see them, you know, they're in a much better position than we are, but do you think, David, that this is a genuine Super League challenging Catalans team now, or they still not got rid of that inconsistency?
Yeah, they've not, have they? I thought this season, you know, particularly with Sam being there and Matty Smith and Macaulay, I thought they've got the basis there of it. You know, they had the basis ready, but I think they were just the icing on the cake. I just think that they've not managed to shake that off for whatever reason. You know, even though they've got more experience now, they've probably got more grand final winners rings than us at the minute. But you know, they're still not there, are they? And I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't read too much into it because it's, you know, they're very well, you know, the players that are there will know what it takes at the end of the season. So as long as they're there or thereabouts, as we'll be looking for, I think that might be when you'll see a different side to Catalan when it gets down to finals football, like they did in the Challenge Cup, and when it gets down to the playoffs. I think they might just click at that point, you know, particularly with Sam, Mickey Mack and Matty Smith steering them around because they know they've been there, done that, won the T-shirt.
Yeah, obviously can bring in somebody like Fuad Yaha as well, the sort of part way through the season. Sam Cassiano, as Michael says here as well, you know, new signing, who I'm sure Wigan would have liked to get hold of at some point. Who knows? He might turn out to be a Frank Paul Nuasala. I mean, he had a
Sean, what I think when I think of a quick thing there when you're just talking with David. I think the only way to beat them is on Sunday. One of their Achilles' heels is eyeball to Tini, because you know what it was like when he played for us.
Yeah,
he used to be like a pigeon, didn't he? Flapping all over the place. You know what I mean? And I just think, let's do it. You know,
well, I mean, where do you think this game's going to be won and lost? You say Tierney. I mean, you know, the battles across the pitch. I mean, it's such a shame that this game isn't. It feels like a game that should be on telly. It feels like a game that's worthy of the new camp, for example. But you know, you've got Lulawai against Macaulay, and you've got Hardacre against Tompkins. You've got Yaha against Burgess. You know, these are big clashes, aren't they? Ben Flower, Casti. These are some fantastic players coming up against each other. It feels like it should be a really good game. Where do you think it'll be won and lost, though, Stu?
Man in the middle.
Man in the middle.
Probably breaking into Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Play the simple. Man in the middle.
I think you've got to look at the kicking game as well. I think we'll need Jared Samet to be on form because I think we need to be turning Sam Tompkins around rather than kicking the ball down his throat. I know when he was at Wigan, he had a habit of offloading it to the nearest winger at every opportunity, but we need to wear Tompkins out, and I think there's going to be a massive amount on the kicking game. We need to get it spot on Sunday.
I mean, when you've got that... Sorry, Stu. When you've got that one-star player as Tompkins is, I mean, they've got lots of star players, but I think we saw with Wigan, with Jackson Hastings at the weekend, they're good at trying to isolate somebody. They're good at that, It worked quite well with Jackson Hastings. He didn't have as much of an impact, I think, as he would have hoped. And one man that did have an impact, and we mentioned it earlier on, is George Williams. Stu, the consistency of George Williams has got to be key on Sunday. Can he back it up from a great performance, a hat-trick performance against a man of steel 3-pointer or whatever we're classing that league table as? How important is George Williams on Sunday that he can actually string 2 good performances together?
He's got to, hasn't he? Simple as he's got to. My fear is, will they be tempted to put Sam at 6 with Matty Smith and put Gigo, what do they call it, fullback?
Gigo.
On with, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because of everything, McNamara, you know what I mean? We'll be thinking, hang on a minute, Sam, you know, get on the boy one day. You know what I mean? You just mark him out. You just never know, you know.
David, your thoughts on George Williams? I know we spoke off air about it. I mean, the rumours, he's going at the end of the season, whether it's to Canberra, which it is, or anywhere else. You know, he's off to the NRL. You know, hopefully that's out of his system. We're just doing the Wigan thing of announcing it in August when it was signed in February. But George Williams, if he wants to be a serious contender for Man of Steel, if he wants to be regarded as one of the best players in Super League, I mean, you look at the consistency that Jackson Hastings has shown. Even Lola here, who was dropped at the weekend, is a leading assist maker in Super League, and he can't even get in the Leeds team at the minute. Your thoughts on George Williams and how big a game do you think Sunday is, particularly against Sam Tompkins? If we think about England, Great Britain selection, Sam Tompkins is somebody that played in the halves for England last year. So with Widdop back, Sam Tompkins, you know, this is a position that Tompkins has got his eye on, as well as George Williams at the end of the year. But David, your thoughts on Williams?
Yeah, I think he probably will play with a bit more freedom. I mean, for me, he will obviously be a loss, but since he signed his marquee contract, has he earned that money? No, he's not. He's not been our best player, you know, for a long, long time. So, but like I said, with that freedom, then hopefully, you know, if he knows in his head that he's going, which he must be, because obviously, you know, it would have been quashed ages ago. Wigan doing the Wigan communication thing of letting the entire social media world, you know, announce something, then Wigan will tell the fans, you know, when it's been signed and sealed and delivered as Lennigan.
It's that dial-up internet, I'm telling you, at the DW. Yeah. It's nothing to do with that. They've sent the fax last week. It's just not arrived yet.
It's just like, yeah, but it does need to, you know, I think he owes Wigan fans a lot because, you know, and the club, they've put a lot of money into him over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Again, the loyalties seem to have waned. I can't blame him
whiten his teeth, hasn't
he? But yeah, it's due, and like you said, consistency. He needs to be performing. You know, not one game in 3. He needs to be out of 4. You know, we can afford a bad game every now and then, but he needs to. You know, he's our go-to man. He's our only marquee player at the moment. So we're expecting big things from him, rightly so, and hopefully the Salford game's a sign of things to come.
I mean, the reason why I've picked on George Williams, I think we all agree that his last good game was probably the Leeds victory. You know, and there's a common theme there, isn't there? George Williams plays well and we beat Leeds. George Williams plays well and we beat Salford. Our 2 victories of the season, and it's absolutely crucial, like you say. That, I mean, this opens up a completely different topic that we don't have time to talk about. But the marquee rule for me is Dr. Marwan Kukash's final nail in the coffin for Wigan, as far as I'm concerned. It's done nothing but cause us trouble. The marquee player. Like you say, George Williams, the reason why we're uber critical on George Williams is the amount that he earns because he's a marquee player. The reason I think that we lost Sam Tompkins was because the amount of games that he was injured whilst he was on a marquee salary, he couldn't justify from a financial or business position as a club to justify continuing that. For Catalans, it's a new signing, we've got him over the injuries, but the marquee rule that Kukash brought in before he left our flipping sport to come back in at whatever point he decides to come back in and set up Liverpool or whatever. That was one of that is Wigan have fallen for it, and that is the downside of the marquee rule that I don't think when it was introduced anybody could ever have foreseen that is the problem. It just puts so much pressure on players to perform, and rightly or wrongly, I think as fans we put pressure on those marquee players over and above the rest of the squad. Peter says, get the doctor in as chairman. Can you imagine? It wouldn't even be a handshake if he was doing deals. I mean, you'd be lucky if you got a handshake. Spencer mentions Mathers. Mathers is the communications officer.
Oh my God!
let's get some score predictions in. Stu, how do you see Sunday going?
Golden point, and we'll win by 1.
Who's going to get that drop goal?
Summit.
Samet.
Oh, you can't say that when Matt's not here.
I know. I'd set you up for Navarrete. Never mind. Josie agrees when we get rid of the marquee because no player should be paid a significant amount of the salary cap. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, the marquee rules just completely mess Wigan's business plan. I think we got a little bit too carried away, thinking that we're the biggest club and we need to pay those marquee sign-ins straight away. But anyway, I was going to say I digest. I digress. Right. David, your score prediction for Sunday?
I think it'll be another high-scoring game, similar to last week. So I'm going to go with 26-22 to Wigan. I think we'll win.
The two teams that sort of don't seem too concerned about the defending at this moment in time, do they? If you think of Salford putting 40 points on Catalans and Salford putting 22 points on us last week, I'm going to go for... How many points do we have in us? Greenwood, apparently, Josie says, did appeal and has won his ban, so we were without Greenwood, which is an issue. I'm going to go 28-10. I'm confident that we'll get the win. I'm less confident about the games following, but there seems to be lots of talk on here about the start of our season now. We're going to go on a run. It's going to include Good Friday, a bit of positivism, as well as digesting. Spencer says Wigan 30, Catalans 12, and I buy my mum a season ticket for luck. Yeah, okay. So I think we're all positive that we may get to 6 points, and that Stu, will you be happy with that? You see us creeping up the table and being in contention for a top 5 position?
6. Listen, let's just put it like this. I would be happy to be in Super League next year and a nice little run to Wembley, mate. Maybe that's that.
Okay. Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? We have got the Challenge Cup run to potentially look forward to until we draw Warrington away in the first round, and
the new camp.
Yeah, and we've got the new camp and things like that. So lots to stay positive about. Yeah. Everybody getting on Sam Tompkins' back now as well, which is good. Martin Tompkins never beats the first man. Missed the catch and pass by Kieran, which I assume is about Tompkins. Yeah, we can say everything that we thought over the past few years now, can't we, about him? Josie says he passes the ball before the first man gets to him. Yeah, let's give him some stick. Stu, David, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Thank you, everybody, for watching. David, you look like you're about to declare something.
Yeah, I was actually. Well done. Well spotted. Been obviously Matt Mullen, the Wigan runner, was on earlier. Did you say it was on day 806?
Oh, 816, I think. Yeah, he's a long way through, isn't he?
So I've been chatting with him. So I'm going to join him on a Wednesday night, probably in a few weeks, for one of his runs. So we're going to do a bit of a fan TV run for you. I'm just frightened that I'm going to sort of do something disastrous and end his streak, and that'll just be absolutely dreadful. But yeah, we're going to keep your eyes peeled. But me and Matt are going to go on a fan TV run in a few weeks. I think he might put a Facebook Live out on there as well.
Yeah, it'll be great, and we'll sort of tap you in as well whilst we're doing the live show. And I hope he makes you do like a decent run as well, sort of 8K into a 10K, and we'll join in then.
I told him, I said, well, I can do 5K. I'm not too bad at the 5Ks for half an hour. And then he said, oh, great. He said, well, we'll do a 10 or 15K then. Never going to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and we'll join you live when you sort of when you're about 1K from the finish. Yeah.
Cheers, thanks, guys.
No, that's great. No, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week when we preview who we got next week. Wakefield, Castleford. Which one is it? It's the same place. It doesn't really matter. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching.
See you later.